Hello, everyone. Welcome here for our conversation with Edgar and Charles. I know Edgar for quite a while, and we have been exchanging ideas on how to behave in this crazy world for a while now. And we've been talking about stuff that are happening right now. And some time ago, while I was writing the book, we say Rehumans in English, but it is Humanos de Negócios. I knew Charles was coming to Brazil, and then I asked Edgar to introduce me to him. And then I was lucky to listen to Charles give this amazing lecture here in Brazil at SESI. And then in the end, he was launching his book. The book, can you say the name of the book in English, Charles?
The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible.
Thank you. O mundo, mundo mais bonito que nossos corações sabem ser possível em português. And then before Charles finished his presentation, I went running straight to the line to get his autograph. But in fact, I was going to ask him to be part of the book. But I was like taking too long explaining about the book. And then this amazing woman called Leah Diskin, she's a publisher of this Palas Athena publishing house. And then she was the one publishing the Charles books. She was like, okay, it's time to go now. And then Charles wrote in the book, while he was giving it to me, License to Love. And I was like, what is that? What is license to love? Why do you need license to love, you know? And then I was like thinking that maybe she was like, trying to push me. And then Charles was like trying to understand what was happening in that very moment. And I said, okay, so maybe he wants to give some love, or he needs some love. So let's give him some license to love. So that's the way I interpret that. And I think starting this conversation talking about love for me is important, because I think we need so much love right now, in order to move things around and how things are happening in the world. And so I'm feeling a lot of love right now to have you guys here and having this people watching us and getting together to understand what is happening in the world. And before I start this dialogue, I just want to mention that we thought about doing this while launching the crowdfunding campaign for the book. And then Charles had a problem with his family. And then we postponed this for this moment, because we thought that would be nice to have this conversation in the end of the crowdfunding campaign to help to achieve the goal. But we have achieved the goal already, like the first goal. So this is kind of like a celebration, having you guys here today. So I'm so happy. Thank you, Charles, for making the time. Thank you, Edgar, for making the time. Thank you for being such a good friend and walking along with me. And of course, you guys both are interviews of the book that I'm so happy to be launching very soon with the guys at Editora Voo, our publishing house. So thank you again. To start our conversation, what is happening in the world right now?
Oh.
Who tries that first?
Are we going that way?
We should, man. So
it's your choice.
Well, I don't know. I heard noises coming out of your mouth first, so maybe that means you should go first. Or I don't know. I can say something. Does look like the world has gone crazy in many ways, but I think that it was already crazy. And what's happened is that the insanity has simply become more visible right now, impossible to ignore. But it's not like everything was perfect this time last year. It was just that everything for at least the affluent classes seemed to be working okay. Normal was going on as normal, and the problems were hideable from the perspective of a affluent person in a developed nation. And now that's no longer true. You can't have your head in the sand anymore. You can't, the wealth and power don't insulate a person as they did before. I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know right now. But yeah, like here's one example. And this is controversial, okay? Like, I know that probably a lot of people listening to this think that lockdowns and quarantines and social distancing and masking are the right thing to do and should continue as long as there's a threat, even if that is another year, another 2 years, another 5 years, or even forever. Our health czar, Andrew Fauci, says we should probably never shake hands again as a common social ritual, which actually brings, Edgard is the king of hugs. So I'm not sure how you feel about this, but anyway, it seems, it kind of looks like, wow, this thing happened all of a sudden. This new step in our separation from each other. But actually, I was just with my 15-year-old son. We were walking, and I remembered that his school was going to have a overnight camp out there. And just at the beginning of the year, this was last September. This was before coronavirus. But they canceled it because in the state of Rhode Island, where I live, there was like 1 or 2 cases of Zika, this other virus. So they closed down. They stopped like every outdoor activity because of this fear. This fear. It was already here. The fear was already here. Same thing with the conditions for wildfires. The conditions being decades and decades of destruction of forests and soil and water. The conditions were already here. The conditions for civil unrest in this country, a lot of civil unrest this year, but it's not. But the reasons for that were already here. The paranoia, the militancy, the polarization, like the mania for safety, for security, every condition here that is erupting in our face right now was already here. Like everything happening this year was inevitable given what has been happening. I mean, I would say for the last, few decades or centuries. So that's my answer. What's happening in the world is that the past is erupting into the present.
There's more to that we are going to unfold in a little bit, but I would love to hear Edgar's impressions as well.
I'm kind of thought on Charles' clarity in the way that he described it. It's nothing that we didn't knew yet, that people are not talking about. It starts from the activists, from the environment activists, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But then the last 10 years, like everyone is talking about. The United Nations said like we have 2013 to 2030 to as a ending to take solutions, take decisions, like global decisions. So about the catastrophe, like we kind of know. And I think what's going on right now, for me, from my perspective, what's going on exactly is this field of fear. Beyond what I'm putting attention, is not about all the disasters, but this field that we have been created. This fear, frustration, is not just about the catastrophe. It's not anymore climate crisis. It's the catastrophe. Is here, all over. So, but what's really concerned me, like, is this big field that human beings can create, this fear, this field of unsafety, fear, depression, lack of hope, desperation, whatever. But this loneliness and like this sense that we are all going into ourselves and being quiet. So this is more concern for me. So I kind of now finally, after 7 months of accelerating, instead like the whole nature is asking us, for me it was like a big opportunity. Like nature said, okay guys, you're not being able to stop, I'm gonna stop you. And I'm gonna be caring. So if you stay home, you sit down, you wash your hands, you're gonna be okay, right? Don't disturb. Like, and by the way, look outside and see how it can work well without you. What happened without you, right? So this is a great opportunity. But as soon as the pandemic came, as a social activist, I accelerated. And I am an accelerated person. I accelerated way more, to save people, to try to ask whatever. And finally, I decided to stop. It's not even because I'm collapsing, but I have to take this opportunity. So sensing what's going on, what's next, what's happening, and try to understand what's my role in it. So for me, what I'm observing is this growing field that can rapidly become like giving up or surrendering. But I wonder, how can we come together, reconnect with peacefulness, and there's the other side of that. I was talking with a Canadian friend of mine, and she lives in the woods. She went to the woods, that amazing woods of Canada, and she was not feeling well as well. But she told me that she's a very city person, and she never took the time to observe nature. Observe nature. So she's talking with the squirrels in her garden. She has a friend, squirrel, one, and many birds. And she's observing she's 7 months like at home. She lives by a big lake, amazing lake, those Canadian lakes. But she said, the only way for me to be healthy is going back to observe, like to be in touch with nature, not just observe, like I understand that I am part of it, and getting very connected with the close relationships, loving. So I'm learning to love my close friends, my close relatives. This is the only way for me to not get crazy. And I love this idea that maybe at some point we can calm down and remember that we are connected. For me, what's going on now is a result of a great separation from man, humankind, from nature, the mind from spirit, and for the whole, for the oneness. So now I see that it's a part of transition that may bring us to oneness, but to its way, or collapse.
And this time it looks different because we have those things like artificial intelligence. We have this totalitarian politicians. They are looking forward to have the like full power and rule everyone. We're seeing this happening in many countries around the world, and because we have been through pandemics before, right? In history, humankind history. Is this like a wake-up call for us? Is it really bringing us closer? Or is just accelerating the separation?
Okay, I can go first, Charles. Take your time. I mean, I remember that holy book, Indian book, Mahabharata. I don't know how to say in English. And there's a short story about three princes that went to the wood, whatever. But by the end of the day, the ending quote was, the question was, what's inevitable? What is inevitable for humankind? So there was a lake, a magic lake that was always like, answer me, what's inevitable for humankind? If you're not able to answer back, the lake will throw you back. You will die, right? So, and none of the princes was able to answer the question except the last one, the little one. And he said like the answer was happiness. What's inevitable for humankind? I was 17 when I heard the story. I was crying. I couldn't understand why I was crying so much. Maybe it's my hope since I was a kid. So for me, like, I think like if we're not able collectively to find the right way, maybe few of us are gonna rest. I don't think that the whole humanity. So people say that some esoteric people say that this is not the first time that humankind destroys nature or destroys itself. So there's the last possibility is everything collapse and people that are gonna stay here. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I don't want it to happen. But people are gonna stay here. They're gonna go back to like reconnect nature, reconnect with sacredness. And because the way that you can find this, you're not going to find this peacefulness, this connection, the oneness for the things that we have, for the cars and houses and money. So many of us are going back. I don't know, I don't have the numbers, how many, trying to go back to this different source, or to wake up that we are there, we are not separated from that. Our minds are separate from that. But I'm not seeing like really powerful signals that we are intentionally going there. We are still intentionally trying to survive, trying to don't think about it, trying to pretend that it's not happening, or trying to survive. But at some point, maybe a call. I'm thinking a lot about the hippies movement. From this disaster, for I think humanity, or at least the United States at that point, was feeling this kind of hopeless. You know, it was so terrible what was going on in Vietnam. And we needed a hippie movement to deal with that, to create a different field, right? Have this hopeless, and then suddenly peace and love, joy, colorful, big hairs, freedom, sexual freedom. So I hope that maybe you're going to arise in some part of humanity, this sense of this chant that we all gonna hear and say, oh, that's what I was looking for. And maybe this change or this field, this tune, is gonna lead us for the big change that we're looking for.
Charles.
Yeah. So you asked, is coronavirus bringing us closer together or accelerating our separation? I would say it's both. The separation aspect of it, even social distancing, that actually didn't start with coronavirus. People have been becoming more and more distant from each other, and more of their lives mediated by technology for quite a long time now. The obsession with germs and with hygiene, that has been going on for a long time too. So you know, you could say, yes, we've always had pandemics. They've visited humanity from time to time. But what is different today and remarkable today is the reaction to the pandemic. As Edgard was saying, this climate of fear. Because if you look just really objectively at it, excuse me, yeah, if you look objectively at it, so far globally, about 1 million people have died from COVID-19, which is, you know, a very tiny percentage of the population. I mean, it's less than, gosh, it's like 1/100%, right? It's very tiny. Just a little more than 1/100%. Whereas even, you know, in the hippie era, this is a good example actually of a very different zeitgeist. In the hippie era, at the peak of the hippie era, 1968, that was like the pinnacle of that time. There was actually a pandemic. Most people don't remember it. It was called the Hong Kong flu, and it killed between 1 and 4 million people. probably
Wow.
probably 3 or 4 million,
Wow.
which per capita is at least 5 times more than COVID-19 has killed. But there was nothing like this kind of reaction. 5 times more people. Okay, and flu also causes, even if it doesn't kill you, it can cause long-term consequences, just like COVID-19. So 5 times more people. But there was nothing like this, no lockdown, no obsession with hand washing and masks and all that stuff. In fact, the very next year, while the pandemic hadn't fully subsided yet, in the United States, we had Woodstock. 500,000 people gathered together in this enormous party, like the biggest party that North America has ever had, basically. So this is, it was a time that was not ruled by fear. The spirit then was, yes, we can do it. We can do anything we want. And it's just, I'm not going to go into a historical analysis right now of all of the streams that have converged into our current era of fear and safety obsession. But in that sense, it is a flying apart from each other and from the world too. It's not just separation from each other as far as social distancing and quarantine and lockdown goes, but it's also like this fear of the material world, where you're supposed to stay indoors and in your own home. So, and to avoid any interaction with the microbial world, like all of the things that you're supposed to do to protect yourself from COVID-19, you're also preventing other viruses and bacteria from getting into your body. And so it's this understanding of the body as a separate individual entity rather than as a nexus of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, it looks like you want me to stop. But
no, you could go forever. I
could go forever. So yeah, you better stop me.
No. I was just wondering about this sense of fear, and then this question is for both of you. And I remember a friend saying in the beginning of the pandemic, he was like, okay, so we're kind of like over evaluating death, like if we were able to escape from it, but in fact we can't, right? So we're just trying to maximize our health or anything we can in order to avoid that. And that's why people are so, fearing so much. And then we have media everywhere in the world, right? Everyone is connected like we never were before in those during those pandemics as well. So anything that happens, immediately we will hear about it. And so that increases this field of fear. And at the same time, we want to live forever. And the medicine is so advanced, and we have so many pills and everything that we can like delay our existence in this planet. So how can we put all this together and try not to embark in this wave of fear?
Do we really want to live forever though? Like under what conditions does somebody care the most about their selves? It's when there's nothing else calling you into life that's worth taking a risk for. There's nothing that you care about. There's no meaning or sense in your life. If that's the case, then you might as well just, maximize your own self-interest, maximize your own security and comfort. But, and so I think that in a way, the fear zeitgeist is a symptom of a loss of direction and a loss of meaning. That in the 60s, we had that. As a civilization, our meaning came from the conquest and transcendence of nature. We were going to have robots and flying cars and outer space and the next frontier, and onwards and upwards. We were excited about that. And we thought we had the answers. Democracy, free markets, and now we've lost our way. That picture of the future isn't working anymore. It's not exciting anymore. We don't know who we are. And in that state, we become lost. We become afraid. So I think that to get out of the fear, we have to reconnect to purpose. That's what gives somebody courage. Courage comes from connection to purpose. It's not something that you can will yourself to have, but it comes from community, but that's related, and connection to purpose. Because if someone's really strongly connected to their purpose, they'll take huge risks. Like look at the environmental activists in Brazil who risk their lives for what they love. Their number one priority is not their personal safety. If that were their number one priority, then they wouldn't even be an environmental activist. So this on a global level, we are in a search right now for what we as a species are here to do, what we really care about, our purpose here, and perhaps this epidemic, this pandemic, is part of the breakdown in the old meanings, which encompass politics, economics, everything. The breakdown in the old meanings that is part of our search. Just to make it extra obvious that where we were headed is bankrupt. So it's like asking us, who do you want to be? Really, that's the question underneath coronavirus. It's underneath the ecological breakdown too. And the social breakdown, the political breakdown. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to be? Like, we will not be able to resist totalitarianism unless we develop a clear sense of where we want to go. Otherwise, we will not have that fortitude. We won't have that courage, that resiliency to resist totalitarian powers. We need a strong sense of ourselves as a people. And that comes from our common cause, our common aim. So yeah, this is the question of our time. Who shall we be?
Yes.
Together?
And then I would love to hear Edgard on that, because Edgard has this beautiful story about when he was young and then he was watching TV. And then at that moment, because of that, and then you can explain that, Edgard. You said you didn't want to become human anymore. And you were like, I don't want to be human. I distrust this species. And then I would love to hear that story, and also for you to give your idea on what is to be human today.
Well, let's start from the story. It's easier.
Yeah, much easier.
I was about 4 or 5, according to my parents, and I was watching TV. I was a very sensitive child, as all childs are, and I used to cry every time that So TV was the babysitter of my parents at that point. Lower class parents, so they used this TV to be babysitting their kids while they were working at third season of the day, right? So basically, I saw a documentary, the whole documentary of the Nazi camps, and I remember I was too little, so I couldn't quite understand everything, but I remember clearly like 4 or 5 images that I saw that shocked me. One of them are very clear. Usually I don't talk about it because usually I cry. I don't think I'm gonna cry today. There was one that there was some people moving things, taking things from the ground and moving. And suddenly one of those things are kind of moving, and I couldn't really realize what was going on. And then the camera come closer. There were bodies, people of bodies, with those clothes, like the same clothes. And I said, but very teeny bodies, like they didn't look like bodies. And suddenly I saw something that I thought that was moving. So maybe some of them could be alive. And even being very little, that was shocking. So for me, the idea, I was a very thinking kid. I was and I am an introverted person. And so I was thinking a lot, and I couldn't deal with the idea that humankind could do that, could allow that happen. So of course, with 5 years old, I couldn't realize that. So according to my parents, every year, once a year, I would raise another question. So people didn't see that I was watching that. So for 2 or a little bit more years, they didn't realize that I saw it. I was by myself on TV. But then I keep like sending questions. And until I asked to my parents when I was 9 years old, I said, but Dad, Mom, I asked them both together so they couldn't lie to me. So human beings, like the humanity, knew what was going on. I tried to understand how that thing could happen, right? So humanity knew what was going on. And they tried to pretend, but I was watching both of them, like their eyes. And they finally say the truth, that yes, we knew, people knew. So that was disrupting for my whole childhood. So I decided I was not, my way of defending myself from humanity was decided I was not a human being. So I just became to be a human being again with 16. I think volleyball saved me. So the crowd of volleyball. But anyway, that point, I see like how, and it was incredible because for me, it's good you remember this, it's exactly this point, because for me, that was never about Hitler or against Hitler or against German people. Not at all. I never hate them. What I couldn't understand is why we, as humanity, we didn't react to that as much as I could know at that point. I know that many people reacted, but not we as humanity reacted. So maybe the only thing that could save that was humanity reacting, as we are experiencing now. A big amount of people reacting. And I knew that it's not about violence. I never seek for violence. It should be something different. It should be a call, should be a dance, should be something like that come from another place that I love when I finally heard about Hitler. It's the most powerful force. There's no violence, that we have no enemies. So there's a place that you have to go in order to believe that. We have no enemies. And then from that place to act. Well, that's why I like the hippies, It's not about against the army. Let's build the world that we are looking for. So I agree, I'm angry with war. Let's go for love, free love. Let's dance together. Let's hug each other. Let's go and celebrate, even with I didn't know about the Hong Kong flu. I love this story now, Charles. So I truly believe that our biggest, I believe that I knew that with 9 years old, that the problem of humanity, of the lack of love, come from the fear. Fear stopped us to be humans, or to become humans, or to welcome humans and others, not just humans. It's fear. So we kill nature out of fear. We told us stories to dominate nature out of fear, because nature rules. So we create a story that God gave to us, the planet, for us to grow and to dominate it. In Genesis, there are 2 Genesis, different ones, 2 stories different. One says like you are a gardener of that. Another one, you are a dominator of that. You are the boss. In Genesis, you have 2 stories, 2 Genesis in the Bible, and we choose somehow a different one. Some of us, not many of us, most part of humanity are not saying these stories of dominating nature. So for me, the question is a fear. That's why I love games. That's why I invent games. It's not just games, it's different narratives. It's like Life's Beautiful, like that Italian movie. So this is time for us to play another song, to sing, or to find different tunes, and then unlock the genius of humanity. Our genius, like the source, the best version of humanity, is being locked for so long. And that's so sad, because we are so amazing beings when we are celebrating, when we are hugging, when we are not acting from the fear, from jealousy or whatever. It's all here. Like, it's not this far away from us. It's here. It's just a different dimension. It's just a different grade or tune. We can go like this rapidly by ourselves, but way more faster together.
I was just wondering, before you speak, Charles, if the problem of our human species is the fact that we are conscious. because all other animals that they're not conscious as we believe we are, right? They are somehow living the present moment, connected to nature, understanding. You guys remember that tsunami some years ago in that huge beach in Indonesia, where the sea retroceded? It went back to the ocean, and then all animals, they went running to the mountains. But human beings, they stayed there because they were not connected to nature. They didn't understand that. And so the tsunami came in and killed a lot of people, but no animals were found dead at the moment. So they are conscious in another level. And we being conscious, about our possibility of dying, we're trying not to, and we're trying to gather things in order for our future generations, to have lots of money and things, and so they will be safe on that side. And what is that? What is to be human today, according to that view of a future that you can control somehow, even though we know we can't?
Mm-hmm. It is all about control. Part of the reason why modern civilization is so fixated on control is kind of what you said, the idea that we're the only conscious beings here. It's certainly true that human consciousness is different from the consciousness of animals or of trees or of rocks or water or mountains. But I think that these beings have their own consciousness, their own experience of being. And not only these mountains and animals and plants and trees, but also even the world itself and the sun and the stars and the whole cosmos also has a consciousness. And in the case of the whole planet or the cosmos, maybe this consciousness is not inferior to human consciousness, but maybe it's far superior to human consciousness. Maybe it has a subtlety, even an intellect that's beyond our comprehension. But this basic idea so the idea of modern civilization, that we're the only full beings in the world, that leads to control. Because here we are alone in a universe that is indifferent to ourselves. There's no bigger intelligence, there's no purpose outside of ourselves. The only intelligence in the world and the only safety for ourselves depends on what we impose onto the world and how we protect ourselves from the competing beings like bacteria, like viruses, like wild beasts, and the arbitrary natural forces that could victimize us. So in that worldview, that we're the only full beings here, control and fear are both inevitable. But when we admit that there are intelligences and beings beyond ourselves, even in the whole world, then a natural approach would be to ask, well, what does the world want? What is the purpose of the world? What is our place inside this bigger intelligence? What is ours to do? So our participation in creation becomes a matter first of listening and then of joining, which is very, very different than the biblical idea that Edgard was putting out, that Edgard was referring to, that, we're here to dominate. So I'll pause. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Any reflections on that, Edgar?
Could you repeat for me? I'm just flying in Charles' thoughts from the universe.
I was just thinking if there's any reflection of that, because I think that our will to command and control is obviously creating the separation, right? Because I think I'm not connected to the other animals or the bacteria. We are formed by bacteria, microbes. They are like 99% of our body. And we right now we're trying to create this separation because we want to be sure that we're gonna have this vaccine or everything. And then I go back to so let's bring this the economical piece of the puzzle here, which is capitalism, right? I want to be clear here that I'm not against capitalism, and this I say all the time because sometimes it might look like. But the fact is that we have created this machine of producing things and this machine of creating desires that will make us happy if we have this and that, right? And this has taken us to this place where we are right now, devastating natural resources, creating this separation among people. And sometimes I look at this whole picture and how we are organized as human beings, and I think that somehow we are lost in the middle of this puzzle. How can we get out of this? How can we and everything that is designed, and we were talking about that before the conversation, Edgar. Everything that has been designed lately on the social networks and everything is to keep us locked in that loop, right? Mm-hmm. Are we able to break free somehow? What's gonna happen? Or we're just, it looks like we're getting enclosed in this loop, and then we're eventually gonna be locked down in there, and not gonna be able to escape it. It's like, being part of the system that wants to trap you somehow. And what do we need to do to create another way of living and relating to things and to other beings, to nature?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, sometimes for me it's important to realize that this we is not all of us. Maybe it's not even the biggest part of humanity. Who are the we? The we, Western world, Western think, urban people. I think there's the two things that comes to my mind. One is the narrative. So somehow, at some part of history, we create a story that lead us to where we are. There's a narrative. I remember we met Charles and many other friends of us in Findhorn for this big summit, the New Story Summit in Scotia, Findhorn. I can't remember the country now. And people realize that we need a new story. We have one story that many of us are following, especially in Western world. And this story starts from the idea that we are not, we don't have enough, or we are not complete. When you say like we have bacteria, we are part of it. There is one story going on that we are part of it. It's like viruses, bacteria, the air is coming to us, animals. We are here, like we are connected. We are not disconnected from nature. We are connected. We need to feed ourselves, so we're fully connected. But our minds, or our narratives, the story that we are telling ourselves inside our heads, keep us apart from it, or keep us with the idea that we have to protect us from it. Open space, or develop, or conquer. There's this story of more than the narrative, not the narrative of destroying nature, dominating nature. It's the idea that we are not complete. When we lost our connection, as many of our indigenous say, like trees are my sisters and brothers and sisters. The river is my son, or my father. The sun is my father or my grandfather, whatever. So when we expand our idea of being part of it, we are so rich. We're gonna find peacefulness or friendship with the bird singing. So when I was not human, I love nature. So I was born in an island in Santos, and my parents, thanks God, they were always going to the forest. So when I went to the forest, I would run to the forest and being there. And I have so many encounters with wild animals. So I was never afraid of wild animals. including, I have a meeting with including Little Jaguar that we have here in Atlantic Forest, that they come to me and sit down. We saw it in movies, but I have my own experience, like wild animals, birds, and then we start with butterflies. But I was so in tune with nature, they would see that's part of me, and they could come. They would run from other human beings, right? So nature can recognize when we are in tune, and I'm sure that most of us have at least one experience in nature. That's a bird posing you, or whatever, a wild animal coming close to you and being tested. So they can tell when you are connected, when you are not lost. Indigenous people as well. I used to go to many different tribes. The kids would run to me with no fear when I was little, until 20 years old. Not anymore. Now I'm more human. But like we are that. But our story that we are telling ourselves, that tell us that is not enough. Even being a billionaire, I don't feel safe. I don't feel complete. I have to accomplish more. I'm never satisfied. And I lost the ways of being satisfied. I lose the way. I don't know the skills of lay down on the beach. When you're a kid, like you jump in the swimming pool and then you go out and you just lay down on the floor and you see like the drops like drying in your face. Like kids know that. We lost our capacity to enjoy life. That is the question. So because we lost that, in our mind stories say that you need more, you need more to satisfy. You need more things or more adventures to satisfy yourself. You want more. You need a new adventure, more money, more company, whatever. And the earth itself is going to find a way. So for me, that's the question. We need a new story that reminds us, just a new story. It's not a whole civilization. If you give a story, if you give us ourselves the story, you're going to dominate nature. We primates, we found a way to conquer lions. Primates are not stronger than lions, but we did it. We found our way to go to the moon. We are such an incredible creative, or such a powerful story, not power of ourselves, the story, right? So how can we design a new story, like invent a new story? I think like Yuval Harari is right. Like we need to find finally a new story that lead us to put our attention to how lucky we are. What a beautiful garden we were lucky to. It was here, like prepared for us. What a beautiful garden. What a beautiful other being that can touch your shoulder. And so waking up. The Rumi quote that I love. Right there, beyond the notions of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I meet you there. There's another field where we are complete, where we are amazing, where we are already peaceful. Peace is here. Connection is here, in us, around us, in another dimension. It's all about a jump, a shift of dimension.
Beautiful.
So play. Say it happened when we play. When we play together, and I'm not a master of play, but why do I have this gift of making crowd play? So I can go whatever country say, but Edgar, here in China, people, they don't dance, they don't, Edgar, but in India, people don't touch each other. It's just a game, and they are jumping over each other. Adult human beings, culturally, for 1,000 years, they like, don't do it. But in the fields of game, suddenly magic happens. So I know what I'm talking about because I've experienced that. We have this possibility of shift right away to another conditions where life is beautiful.
Nice. And it made me think of Charles has been writing about the new narrative for a while now, and also have been talking about the fear we feel against other human being now more than ever, because he might have that virus that will kill me, right? And then somehow we're feeding others more than before, because before we were feeding others because they will take our property, they will take our stuff and everything. And so why are we connected that much to things, stuff, and material things? And how can we have a more playful existence and get out of this loop?
I think that we become attached to things and money and all that because of what's missing, because of the loss of community and the loss of connection, and having lost all of that, we seek something. We're hungry for something. But I want to just comment on Edgard said that this is not, it's not like the majority of people actually want the kind of world that we live in right now and actually wholeheartedly believe in the system and the story that we live in. And his work with play actually demonstrates just how close we are to erupting into a completely different reality. Like I've been there before. Edgard, we can take a group of very serious people, and within 2 minutes, everybody's like laughing and falling all over each other, and just and in a state of play, which is kind of the opposite of a state of control. When you offer somebody a game, you're not forcing them to play the game. You cannot actually force people to play a game. You can force people to go through the motions of playing a game, but that's not actually playing a game in the sense that we're talking about. What it really is to host a game, to reveal a game, and to invite people to play it. And that is an example of the participation in creation, rather than to take creation as a given and to manipulate it. So yeah, there's, we can talk about a narrative and the importance of a new story and stuff. I mean, I write a lot about this, but there's something underneath the narrative. We're attracted to narratives that match a deeper state of being, a state of pain, a state of fear, or a state of joy, or a state of celebration. I mean, each of these inner states attracts a different narrative. You could be feeling really depressed, and in that state, it seems that yes, the totalitarian New World Order is taking over and it's hopeless and so forth. And then something totally unrelated to the intellect comes in. Somebody comes and gives you the best hug ever, someone you haven't seen for 10 years maybe, and then like all of a sudden that whole narrative seems kind of ridiculous, and you see the world with different eyes. So there's something underneath the narratives that we're attracted to, like the whole virus thing, like you were saying, Rodrigo, like that I'm going to say it in a slightly different way maybe, but the fear was already there. Now comes COVID-19, coronavirus, and this fear of each other, which has already been there, now has a reason that you can tell yourself, oh, okay, now I'm avoiding people because I could get sick, or I could make them sick, or whatever. But that avoiding people was already happening. I noticed this when I would, go for a walk here where I live, and here comes a stranger. I live in a pretty rural area, so it's not like there's a lot of people. So here comes somebody else down the path, and I kind of would like to avoid them, I don't want to have this interaction because I'm a little bit scared of people, actually. How did I become scared of people? I could trace that back to schooling. I could trace that back to a capitalistic competitive economy where everybody is your adversary, trying to get the best deal. And some of them are very ruthless. So you got to protect yourself. And there are these, we're cast into a world of strangers in an economic situation that pits us against each other. No wonder we're scared of each other. And that's, I don't want to oversimplify it, but what I'm saying is that this pre-existing fear, it yearns to have some expression, something to justify itself, something to say, okay, here's why I'm afraid. It's because of a virus. But that's not really the reason. The virus, in a way, the fear of the virus is a symptom of an underlying fear that is built into the way our society runs, and built into the story that runs our society. So, the state of fear, the narrative, it's not that one causes the other. They both cause each other. They comprise an entire state of being. And it is a state of being that I think that we're really getting sick of. So when someone like Edgard comes along and offers us a different state of being, he doesn't have to tell a story about interbeing and interconnection and the playful universe, et cetera, et cetera. He doesn't have to do any of that. All he has to do is bring that spirit in and the invitation and invite the part of each person there that really does want to step into the world of play, into the release of control. And it's like, yeah, I see that in you, Edgard will come up. Yeah. Like you can't resist. So people then in that state that he invokes, a story of interbeing comes naturally, a story of healing, of reconnection, of relationality. It's like, of course, that seems natural in that situation. Whereas if we're sitting in front of our computers, separate from each other, our minds have to try pretty hard to really step into that story.
Charles, I'm curious. So you know my fantasy that we could start a game or a party that could start to waking up people. So I have this narrative to myself, like, okay, maybe we're gonna start something, and people are gonna waking up and start to celebrate life and restoring and regeneration society in nature, and build a different narrative. Am I too foolish or no more than that? Maybe I am, but I see like, do you have any picture, any fantasy, any movie, any narrative that could happen in humanity? If something could save us from the artificial intelligence, from the collapses, the environmental collapses, from the data, whatever, what could that be nowadays?
See, the problem here
It's not the
when
solution. The fantasy. I'm not looking for a solution. Of course, there's no solution. But if you have any fantasy, whatever.
Yeah, the thing is, when we put something in the category of a game, we're kind of saying it's not serious. It's a game. So even if you have rewards points, for saving trees or things like that, it still gets put in a distinct category from real life. What we really want is to understand that life on some level, and people have this insight when they take psychedelics or when they have a mystical experience, on some level, there's a truth here that life itself is a game. Already, it's a game. Life itself is a drama, and we play a role in that drama. And we're meant actually to take that, in a way, take it playfully, but also take it seriously. When you look at children playing a game, if they're playing a game of Star Wars, and one of them's like, yeah, I'm Darth Vader, and you're this, and you're Yoda, and when they're in that game, if one of them says, well, you're not really Darth Vader because that's not a real lightsaber, like they're spoiling the game. Like you have to actually take it seriously. And the same is true of the game of life. But the question then becomes, what game do we want to play? And how do we play the game? So that's I think that the utility of the kind of games that you create, Edgard, or that you discover, it's not that one of them will become like this global game that we all play that saves the world. It's that it reminds us of how to play games. It reminds us of how to be in the kind of game that we really want to start playing as humanity now. Because we're sick of the game we've been playing. We're sick of that drama. We're sick of that story. And your work awakens something in us that wants to play a much different kind of game, a much more fun game, a better game. And you give them the experience that says, yeah, that's real. That can happen. We could play like this. We could be human together in this way. And once you embrace that and affirm that, then the kind of game that has been running this planet into the ground for thousands of years now becomes very unappealing. And a new game becomes much more appealing. Yeah, that's how I see it anyway.
It's time to change the game for sure. And then that's beautiful. That's such a challenge. And I think that challenge takes a lot of people together, right? It's not one person or two that are saying those new things, but we have to create space for this new to emerge. And now I would love to open the room here for questions from our audience. So if you guys wanna bring any question forward to Edgar and Charles, I'll be happy to ask them. But I have so many questions here, and one thing that I would love to ask you guys is that what can we do in our individual level right now? Because I think this calls us for doing things differently. And for example, Charles said people are kind of afraid of, you should wear masks, otherwise, we actually don't know what's happening out there. But I'm not gonna be the one like walking out without mask saying, look, this is all wrong, because suddenly people will say you are, a conspirationist theorist and this kind of things. I'm sure you have heard that lots of times, and maybe you also, Edgar, because you're trying to go enter companies and saying that those guys, they need to play to make things happen, and then they will say, no way, no, this is not. And capitalism is another thing. So how do you guys deal with that skepticism against the theories and things that you believe?
Oh, for me, I don't play with skepticism. I don't care, because of course people are defending themselves, defending their. It's hard to. I know how it's hard to live a narrative, because you left so many things to follow this narrative. It's not that it's amazing. Like, it's not easy for a kid or a teenager or young people to win their brothers, to beat their brothers in order to succeed. You don't feel right. You don't feel good. There's a lot of research about that. Kids don't like it, but they are trained. They are tamed. We are tamed to think, oh, this is life. But we don't feel good. Like, we lose community. We lose, so nobody wants to. Those cultures that don't hug, like when I'm traveling all around the world, people say like, Edgar, this kind of magician, whatever. But Edgar, unfortunately, this country is not gonna hurt. Germany, no, please be careful. And then in 2 seconds, humanity comes. Like, before they are German or Chinese or whatever, we are humans. From the first hug, a real hug, done, right? It's all about like how I train myself to not be afraid of those narratives. Oh, people here don't hug, or people in company, they're all people. As soon as you open, as much close, as much harder the environment, as stronger our deliberation. So I go and play, and I don't discuss with them. So they try to discuss, but then they have to look at all the employees dancing and hugging and jumping and transforming and building a square in just 1 week, 1 day, with no materials, with no money. So I tell the story. We don't need money to do that. People don't believe it. So I don't keep like saying stories. I go there and I challenge them. Okay, I doubt you have 1 day or 8 hours to build a garden here, a playground for kids. Go. But Edgar, we don't have any hammers. We don't have. I don't care. And then people go run and they build. And by the way, most of the time I don't believe they're gonna do it. But I keep the face of, I'm sure you can, right? just to see. What if? Don't tell people, please. But most of them, oh my God, they're not gonna be able to do that. But human beings are incredible. It's incredible. And the whole crowd around, the people in the neighborhood, they don't know the people. When I bring a businessman to Islam, they don't know. I don't connect. Oh, this guy, you don't introduce them, but you invade the community. Yeah. I invade for a few seconds, and then they're gonna build a gift for the community. The community realized right away. That's the best way of welcoming ever. You really came here to give me a gift, a square, a playground for my kids. So it's human. That is for me. It's literally a play. Now you are on stage, and people say now it's a drama, and you play a drama. Now it's a comedy, and people knows how to act in a comedy. Now it's a comedy. They play comedy. Now it's whatever. So we are living in a how I say. Even in Portuguese, not coming. Trances, transit. For me, we as humanity, not the whole humanity. Our indigenous people are not like that. Many of our elders are not like that. People living in small towns, they are really connected with community and nature. We think that we are quite a few of us. But we dominate the narrative of the planet, right? But most of us, many people that have like close relationship, they share their money, they create abundance out of nothing. They evoke abundance in their communities. There's plenty different word right here. So yeah, and I know there's a transit. That's why, and I finally realized that all human beings are amazing. We are. It's not that we can be. We are, but maybe in a hidden dimension that's quite close to get there. I still don't have the plug-in to do it like globally at the same time, but I'm getting there.
Working on that. Great, Edgar. I love that view. And also, Charles, please let us know how do you deal, because you also have been writing about how to relate to the world in a different way, and how to be more connected to each other, how to break that separation. But I know that you don't want to go into the corporate world, to talk about those things, because you just don't relate to that. But this is like the corporate world wants to become more and more, right? They wanted to have the biggest companies in the world, and like $1 billion company, IPO, unicorn, all that thing, And there are so many, like 20 or 30 unicorns in the world, but there are so many people trying to be the next unicorn, and that's the trends that Edgar was mentioning. And how can we break that free, and how do you deal with skepticism?
I have kind of the same answer Edgard does. I love what you said, Edgard, that you just don't believe in the skepticism. And because you don't believe it, the reason you don't believe it is that you're seeing something else in these people and calling that other part of them out. So your belief in them is stronger than their skepticism, because you're seeing something true in them. It's not a domination of them. It's that you're seeing something that's there. And I have the same attitude. I am not actually. I'd happily go into a corporation to do my work if I sense a receptivity there. And in fact, sometimes I do work with. It's usually not corporations, but more, foundations or people like that. But even if it is a corporation, I can go in there and say, you know what? I don't believe you that what you really want is to become the biggest in the world. I don't believe you that what you really want is to become a billionaire. Usually I can see something else in that person. And maybe to discover that thing, I would ask, well, why do you want to become a billionaire? What good does it do you? Why do you want to? And usually when you ask that, eventually someone will come to the good things that they want to do with that money. And then, okay, if that's what you really want, why have you accepted that money is the best way to do those things? Maybe it's not the best way to do those things. Maybe you've accepted a substitute for what you really want. Maybe you've been deluded, hypnotized by something. So basically, it comes down to how we see other people, what we find in them, and that depends in part on what we look for. You can't see something unless you're looking for it, and you can't look for something unless you already know it's there. So that, for me, then it comes down to the story again, like, what is a human being and why are we here? Because when I understand that we are here to contribute to life and beauty on earth, then I know what to look for. And when I look for it, I can find it. When I find it, I can speak to it. So to answer your question, Rodrigo, maybe as far as to what to do, how do we do this? I mean, that's, there's 8 billion different answers to that question, one for each person, but the source of it is our seeing of each other and ourselves too. Because sometimes it might look that like, yeah, maybe I'm selfish and what I actually want is power and money and safety, but do I really want that? And where's the part of me that doesn't actually want that? The part of me that also knows that it is here to serve life and beauty on this earth. That, if we can notice that part, then we can also see it in others and live in that reality.
Love it. And maybe that's because the human experience of the world is based on the self, right? And my own personal experience, and I can't relate to the other, at least in the Western world. And in the Eastern part of the world, those things have been said for quite a few years, like thousands of years, that in order for you to be happy, you have to serve the others, and there are so many experiences of people working in disaster zones, like after earthquakes and this kind of things, while they were like working towards the betterment of the community, they were feeling happy and energized. So why is it so hard for us to understand? Now I will take one question here from Carolina Tarasuk. She says that a question about what Edgar said about enemies. How do we respond with love to those who are greatly harming others, like leaders of our world? I mean, she's probably speaking about politicians. I don't want to name them.
How? Don't do it. So I would say, like, I'm not gonna just answer that in 1 minute, because it's a bolder question and there's so much amazing source for you. I would go, Carolina, for the most powerful force, uma força mais poderosa. It's a series of BBC, London, but it was made by GNT here in Brazil. So if you go to YouTube, it's there. A most powerful force. I think it's 5 or 6 chapters that tells the story of no violence from Gandhi, Luther King, Nashville, and Poland. It's amazing. If you really look for that, like, you can have like a bigger source. I love that. When I saw, I was maybe 20 plus. It's available. I'm sharing with many people nowadays. But I would say, like, there's amazing human beings, and probably even in your family. So another great name that I have the luck to meet and become friends with, Marshall Rosenberg, the guy that wrote about nonviolent communication, and you have videos on YouTube as well, and like really some narratives, some different points of views, where Cacá Verá de Cooper here in Brazil, he says, like, as soon as you stop creating or seeing the enemy in the other, the need of guns they leave. And that's very important to remember, that we are able to see enemy and create enemy even with the closest relatives. You can create enemy in your mother, in your father, in your sister, in your brother, in your lover, and then you create hell. So it's not about the other there. Sometimes we create the enemy. This fact of seeing the enemy in the other, that starts the war. That stopped any possibility of conversation, any possibility of empathy, any possibility of a third way of working. Of course, I'm exercising that with our politicians, like hardly. Thanks God I was trained before, because it's really with politicians, my close friends, but how to remember there is no fancies, there is no boundaries. Like, this line, this invisible line that we create, saying from here there to there Argentina, from here to here Brazil, and because of that, if start a war, I'm gonna kill my neighbor. Or this is my family, this is your family, this is my table, whatever. So that's a different kind of conversation that's not related with these divisions. And we need to tap in there and talk from there, thinking from there, and sensing from there as much as we can. It has to be trained, because the current narrative is another one. But we know in many other places that we can create this field that maybe have the best friend ever, that we never fight. Or your grandma, that doesn't matter what there's no way she's gonna do something that you think, and if she does, you not realize that. So how to train that, the same way that you train to be successful, or to train to be beautiful, train to be whatever. This is time for it.
Beautiful. Any add on that, Charles? Perfect. We have another question here, which is what kind of leadership we need to get out of this trance? From Claudia.
And maybe I will maybe comment on both of those.
Of course.
If that's okay. I've been rereading War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. And he describes the leaders during the War of 1812, the Napoleonic War, and his historical philosophy is that leaders pretty much are helpless to do anything but what they did. And we think that Napoleon could have done this instead of that, but in that moment, all of the pressures that were converging upon him made it inevitable that he would do this. It was already decided a long time ago, not by him, but by circumstances. And he is in the battlefield, giving orders, but none of the orders get taken out get carried out, because by the time that the order reaches the place, things have already changed, or the order is based on false information, and somebody comes and gives him one report from the battlefield, and somebody else comes and gives him a contradictory report, and he gives an order, and by the time the order gets there, it's already been carried out, or it's already too late. And doesn't that kind of remind you of our current situation, where you're reading the news, and if you read a diversity of sites, you're going to get absolutely contradictory information about the state of the world. Or if you only read left-wing or right-wing sites, then you're going to get all the same information. That would be like relying on just one of your generals who has his own viewpoint and isn't telling you what the other generals would like to be telling you. Then you're going to be not in free choice either. So this is very much the situation of everybody, and it's especially the situation of our leaders today. The world is not going to change by our leaders just becoming wiser all of a sudden and making different choices. Their choices, and I've had conversations with people in positions of power. They don't seem to feel any more powerful or any more at choice than anybody else. So that leads to the second question: what kind of leadership do we need? And I guess I would say two things. One, the kind of leadership that starts with listening and just a desire to understand. And the second is the kind of leadership that sees and brings out the amazingness of the people that are looking to somebody as a leader. A leader, in the news story, a leader is somebody who sees the best in others and calls that forth. Like Edgard was talking about, okay, you have 8 hours to build a playground. Well, I don't know how to do that. Like, they may genuinely believe that they can't do that. But Edgard knows better than they do what they can and cannot do. That would be an example of leadership. He's not dominating, but he's holding strong to a possibility that is real, and therefore holding others in that possibility. So a leader holds a vision that's a true vision and holds it strongly enough that it stands as an invitation and doesn't waver. It doesn't fade in and out, but it stands as an invitation because he's holding it, or she, holding it so strongly. It stands as an invitation for others to step into. For a leader to do that requires more than that leader's own strength, but requires, like Edgard might not be able to do that if there are not other people in his life who are validating what he does and supporting what he does. And the same is true for any leader, which is why if you really want your leader to be able to hold a vision for a better future and invite other people into it, you have to hold the leader to hold that. You have to help the leader hold that vision. You have to find leaders who hold the same vision that you do. And you create the field for the leader to hold it for others.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Eu tenho que mesmo que responder depois disso? I do have to answer.
I don't know, it could be a short one. or you can.
Yeah, you know, but what kind of leader would I love to see around me, to follow? When you brought the question, I thought about the free hugs guy from Australia. Someone that sees poem and beauty in life and go for it. He doesn't invite, he don't create movement, he does, the act itself is the motivation. Sometimes I think myself, like, people say, Edgard, oh, you're incredible, you can move like crowds and can whatever. But sometimes I feel like what I really would, if I don't know what I'm waiting for, but if I could, I can. But sometimes I think I should just go and do circle dances all over. Not talking, not be designing games, but just like, and thanks God I can do it. Like just coach a crowd in the street and make a circle. And why I don't know why people come, but sometimes I feel like I could serve way more the world by doing circle dances or brekete or whatever. Could be stronger, doing more and faster. But I would love that those crazy people that are able to see beauty and poem in life and invite evoking that by themselves. Someone that does something that we as everyone are needing, like free hugs, but there are many others, that just by watching that would bring me a big smile and change my day. So if our generation just start to waking up all over, that's the kind of leadership, like the ones that see in the darkness, the ones that are light. Doesn't need to be a fire, just a candle, but the kind of candle that I can watch and smile. I can see and smile, and sparkling joy, taking out joy out of me.
Where are those leaders? I think you are those leaders. I definitely believe that. And this whole story of writing this book is to have new role models. I mean, people that are doing amazing work and not wanting to create the biggest company ever or whatever, but just doing what they believe in order to make people get together and around purposeful things. And I believe you both are doing that along with the others that were interviewed for this book. There are so many brilliant people out there, and those people are organizing themselves in many different parts of the world. It feels to me like sometimes they're acting like cells that once they get together will form this giant organism that can create the change that we need. I would love to have your final impressions on that. How do we move forward? What kind of humanity are we able to build in these next decades? It's going to be very difficult. People are going to migrate all over. There's going to be a shortage of water and food. Places are going to burn, like that is happening already. What kind of movement or what kind of things that we have to do in order to create this bridge for the others to cross? And what do we have to fight against? Do you believe in artificial intelligence will be here to help us? Or it could be something that will make our lives even more difficult? I know this is not the final answer, but I think it's time to reflect on that.
I go first so Charles can finish. I love his conclusions. So I somehow, for myself, not for everyone, I don't think it's the time to raise questions for the solutions, for the ways. I have a friend of mine, he runs the School of Dialogue in Brazil, Arnaldo Bassoli. And he said, Edgar, I'm kind of missing those indigenous rituals where come that moment that they don't know what to do, and they know they come together to listen what wants to come. They come together and they are speechless. They don't know, like something that's so painful, so beautiful, whatever. That they don't have like topics, even topics, but they come together and they create a space for dialogue. Because what's going on is just too much. So we are not single beings. We are collective beings. We are primates. We are a group of people. So we work as a group. We just are because the other one sees us. I just feel human because you look at me and tell me you're human. I recognize you, so I can be. But there's no this single way that we are always, we go crazy. So literally, if like a group of people, your friends decide, okay, let's pretend he doesn't exist. If you do it for 3 minutes, I go crazy. I believe that I don't exist. There's lots of experience like that. So it's not a single time. It's this pain or this fear or this. It's not the pain. It's not even the state of the world. It's this loneliness, this collective sense of hopefulness, right? Hopefulness, less lack of hope. Hopelessness. And so it's this vibration that we all can feel. And then as collective beings, like, oh, something's wrong. So have to be really standing to find a different thing. So when you have this sense of like bad news are coming, or we are in the danger, we as human beings need to come together to the fire. As primates, they do, like they come together. Gorillas, chimpanzees, babuinos, they come together when they don't know what to do. And be quiet until something emerges. But first of all, be together. So that's what I'm doing the last 1 month. So I run for 6 months, like trying to save the planet, trying to save Amazon, trying to save Cerrado. Now taking time to really talking and listening like deeply people that I love most. I have friends all over the world that I never go back to them. Charles is one of them. I love Charles, but I'm trying to respect your time. Charles, I feel like there's so many people who needed you. So I don't write the letters that I want to write to you. I don't call you because she's so busy. So many people are taking care of him. Like maybe sometimes we're gonna meet each other, and then every 3 years, then we can share a hug, which I love. But I'm giving myself the gift to be with my close friends. So I'm doing more and more of that, like taking care of the próximo, amor pelo próximo mesmo, So, and just being quiet. Not talking about the climate change, not talking, okay, and try to see what emerges from this connection, from this proximity. And I'm sure that if there is an answer for me, will come from this ground. No project, no talking about solutions, not answer right away the solutions that comes to me, but trying to respect nature, respect this moment, the virus, say like, use this moment to take a time, reflect, listen, And I'm gonna finish with that, with this amazing quote in South Asia. I was doing this road trip. I was falling in love, and I fell in love with South Asia. And I was in Vietnam, and they have this saying. They have, let's see if I can reproduce that. They say like, in Vietnam, they grow rice. In Vietnam, they grow rice. And in Cambodia, they watch, they observe rice growing. They watch the rice. So Vietnam, they grow rice. They plant rice. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. In Cambodia, they watch, they observe the rice growing. In Laos, they listen. The rice growing. This is Kutung. So in Laos, it's exactly like that. They know. It's amazing people. They listen. And the Vietnamese people and the Cambodian people, they know that. And they say like, Laos people, so now I'm trying to bring back the Laos thing. Like, how can I listen calmly, like, focusedly, what's going on? And at some point, a brisa, the wind, you're gonna tell me, not scream, but like, so what's the next movement? Not how to save the planet, what's next? I didn't stop my activism, don't worry, but I stopped like running and trying, like listening, what's being asked for, even for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I really resonate with what Edgard's saying. Part of the problem today is the rush to the solution. Things like AI, which you mentioned, artificial intelligence, that's it can perform miraculous things, but it's not going to solve the kinds of problems that we have today. It's a more powerful tool to do the things that we've always been doing from the place that we've been doing them. So I'm not going to go into a detailed discussion of that, but just to say, like Edgard, I've too been wanting to come back to source, questioning even my own solutions that I've been operating for 15 or 20 years, which is, oh, I see something disturbing happening on the planet, so let me write an essay about it. Let me write a book about it. Is that the best way to use my time and precious energy in life? Or am I doing that maybe more than I need to do that? And diverting myself away maybe from spending that time with loved ones and drawing, or from in nature, or just drawing from a deeper source. I have many questions like that even those questions, I'm not in a hurry to answer them, but simply to listen and respect the question and the questioning and the questing that is underneath it, the uneasiness. What is that seeking? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Thank you for this beautiful time together.
Yes. I was just coming here to this place where I am talking to you right now. I was just feeling that I'm gonna have this amazing 90 minutes with this amazing human beings. I was just like, trying to create this space for flow in it, because that resonates a lot with I am thinking right now, which is, how can we just enjoy life, be aware that we are alive in this precious planet, and we know so many beautiful people like you guys. So let's make good use of that and create experiences and create a moment for us to connect. And so thank you so much for making the time for that. I know you guys know each other for quite a long time, and you haven't been seeing each other. So I'm glad we could create this space for that, and to have this high level of debate and conversation in this low pace, which is very rare to find in this moment in time. So thank you so much. And for those who are watching us, those beautiful souls are portrayed in this book. They have amazing stories. I can't wait to see that book published. And I'm so happy that the crowdfunding campaign went out very well. So we're going to have the book in about 2 months. Charles, I'm going to be sure to mail that to you, and maybe you can learn some Portuguese along the way. So you can at least try to read a little bit. And soon, I believe, I hope we can publish the book in English as well, and gather other stories from amazing human beings around the planet. Thank you so much for everyone that watched this. Thank you for my brother Bruno, who's in the backstage, putting this amazing things on the bottom, like some beautiful quotes you guys had. And thank you for guys at Editora Voo who are going to publish the book, and for everyone that has been walking with us in this path of rehumanizing the workspace, the environment, the business environment, and everything. That's all we need, to put love in our conversations and in our lives. And thank you guys for everything that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.